Vivid Notes.
Next on Black Nouveau.
Good evening and welcome to this edition of Black Nouveau. I'm Milton Dockery.
And I'm Joanne Williams, in for Faithe Colas. This week we'll offer some tips on how you can afford college, and we'll preview some of the special African American History Month programs here on Milwaukee Public Television.
February 7th is National Black AIDS Awareness and Information Day. We'll chat with two frontline workers in our community's fight against the disease.
We'll also bring back a sweet story in advance of Valentine's Day. But first, Vivid Notes is an exhibit that offers a peek into the world of blues and jazz musicians with works by 4 artists. Our Liddy Collins attended the opening reception.
Blues and jazz is one of America's only original art forms.
These are expressions coming out of African rhythms. Audible expression from the soul.
They're both forms of telling stories, of expressing self from within.
And these expressions were caught on canvas by these artists and shared with the community in the Vivid Notes exhibit at the Northwestern Mutual Art Gallery at Cardinal Stritch University.
I see your lips, your summer kisses, your sunburned hands that I used to hold.
Jazz and blues singer Jeannie Rivers and sax player Olu Sijuade helped set the mood for the art exhibit. The idea for this exhibit came out of a conversation.
It was just sort of a fluke, and I love things like this. It's serendipitous. I was talking to Tony Frontier, who works in our doctoral leadership area, and he stopped by to show me some of the photographs that he has taken. And I thought, wow, those are really great photographs. So I really got a feel for the body of his work and just sort of logged that away. And then started thinking about how there could be a show around his work.
I'm a musician and I'm a photographer, and I was sharing some of the pictures from my street musician series, and the ideas rolled from there. This is a series of photos of street musicians from around the country. I have the opportunity to travel with my work, and as a musician myself, when I go to a city, I seek out areas where street musicians are playing, get a chance to talk to them, hear some of their music, and take some photos. I think what's really unique about street musicians, these aren't people who've been discovered, these aren't people who are famous on a stage. These are people who are out there trying to make some money, making music. And part of what I'm trying to convey is the intensity, the beauty, sometimes the loneliness of being a street musician.
The color indigo, blue, is the color of choice for Mutope J. Johnson.
It's tied to the slave trade, which really made the first connection for me. And as I began to discover that connection, you know, how widespread it was and how ingrained it is in our people, you know, African Americans specifically, or Africans and African Americans, it just occurred to me that, you know, when I give it a try and explore the depth of it, I focus on a lot of, you know, cultural significant narratives. These specific works are tied to individuals who have opened up doors for others. I sort of picked 3 individuals that were pioneers relating to the music world as we know it. Louis Armstrong, Josephine Baker, and James Brown. 3 very distinct periods that allowed them to open up doors for other entertainers. I research, you know, before I paint, you know, so I'm not just winging it. I try to give careful consideration to the individual and what that individual may have experienced, and so I love listening to the music, you know, while I'm painting, and so it's a rhythmic, it's like a improvisation sometimes, you know.
Scott Pollard is about capturing color, intensity, and energy.
As you look at these expressions, it's really about capturing energy, about capturing personality. When I photograph something, it's really like I'm photographing a ritual. And that ritual is it's energy, because it starts at a level like this, then it goes up, and then it comes down, and that's really what I try to capture.
Artist Brad Bernard's work show the location, birthplace, and residence of the different blues musicians he met while living in Mississippi.
The mixed media collage using drawing elements, printmaking elements, painting elements, as well as different textures, whether it be wallpaper, cloth, material, that sort of thing.
And he calls his work portraimentaries.
You take a portrait and a documentary and mix it together, where you're taking a recognizable likeness of somebody and then incorporating different elements of where they've resided and different things and bits and pieces of their life relevant to them as an individual.
The motion and color in the work of Brad Bernard gives off that blues and jazz flavor.
People can go on a visual journey by looking at some of the different symbolisms and hidden images, as well as respond to the color and the texture of each piece.
And here we are in heaven, and I'm with you at last.
If you're planning to attend college in the fall, now is the time to apply for financial aid. We're joined by Tamia Cloyd, Financial Aid Specialist at MATC, and Susan Teering, Director of Financial Aid at Marquette University. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Now is the time. Is it, my first question, is it too late?
No, it's not too late.
Oh, good.
Now's the perfect time.
Okay.
The FAFSA became available on January 1st. Every January 1st it becomes available.
And FAFSA stands for?
Free Application for Federal Student Aid.
Which I have right here, which I'm making out for my son.
Excellent.
And
it becomes available on January 1st, and we encourage students to apply early. So as soon as you have your tax information gathered or your end of the year earning statements, it's the perfect time to file your FAFSA.
Once you file the FAFSA, does that mean you are guaranteed financial aid?
No, it does not. That is the beginning process. After you complete your application, the best thing to do is give it about a week or two. You definitely want to check your status with the schools that you are applying at, just to make sure they receive the information and that they're not requesting any additional documents.
When you start filling out these forms, how much do you have to know about your personal finances? Absolutely everything?
Well, what you need to use is your prior year's or your current year's taxes. So right now we're going to be filing our taxes for the 2011 tax year, and that's the information you'll use to file the FAFSA. Next year it would be your 2012 information, a year from now.
Okay.
So it's always the tax information that you're currently filing.
Now, what are the main sources of financial aid? Are they just from the institution that you're going to attend?
You can receive grants, scholarships. These can be inside or outside sources. You can apply for as many things as you want to. We encourage our students to apply right away so that they can utilize the grants before they do run out. There are things such as the Wisconsin Higher Education Grant that do run out of money, but you can get sources from in or out of school.
Speaking of the possibility of running out of money, are there deadlines for all these various grants and scholarships?
The earlier the better. We encourage you to do it right away. Even if you haven't filed your taxes or if you know that there may be a problem with your taxes, we encourage you to go ahead and do the application, because you can always go back in and add your financial information, and that will secure your place.
How many sources are there of financial aid?
Well, there's federal sources. The federal Pell Grant is probably the foundational grant that everybody hears about. There's also other federal grants besides the Pell Grant. Some schools have what's called Supplemental Educational Opportunity Grant. Then there's the state resources. She referenced the Wisconsin Higher Education Grant. There's the Wisconsin Tuition Grant that students can access at private institutions. So there's state and federal sources, and then there's federal loans, campus work, and then many institutions have their own funding that they can help in terms of grants and scholarships.
There is a lot available, but it gets confusing, especially for parents, let alone for the potential college students. But we poor parents sometimes are in a fog saying, I have to fill out all these forms. What sort of things should we look for? What should we avoid so that it'll be an easy process?
I would avoid applying for things that you receive in your email, like interest loans or private loans. You don't want to just apply for something because you received it in the mail or because you received an email about it. You want to talk to your financial aid department at whatever school you plan on attending before applying for any outside loans and anything that's going to ask for your personal information.
I was going to say, would you say the same thing? Because I've gotten emails saying, oh, money for college, come here, give us your name and your phone number and everything else, including your social security number. Should we avoid those?
You should absolutely avoid those. The first and foremost thing that a family should do is complete the free application for federal student aid. That's the federal government's form, and it's the one form that every school has in common. So if your student is going to go to school here in Wisconsin or someplace else, that's the one form that they'll need to complete. Some institutions require additional forms, but they'll tell you what they are. So they'll direct you to what kind of form to complete. There are free scholarship search engines for outside scholarships, but look for recommended sites that the school is recommending, like fastweb.com, for instance, is a very good scholarship search engine, or the search engine that's associated with the website called finaid.org, that's finaid.org. Those are all reputable scholarship search engines, and so work with your school, as Tamara said, and find those particular places where the school is saying, hey, we're familiar with them. Start there.
What comes first, the acceptance into a school or the application for financial aid?
It really depends on the institution you're attending. In the case of some private institutions that have earlier admission deadlines, you'll get your admission decision first, and then we'll match it up with your FAFSA data. But if you're intending to enroll at a more open enrollment institution, you would probably be filing your FAFSA first and maybe hearing about your admission later. Is that correct?
Anytime you do the application, as long as you add a school's code on there, that school is going to receive your information. So you can actually add as many schools as you want to.
Now, this is February, but sometimes we don't hear from the schools as far as being accepted until much later. Should we go ahead and try and find some scholarship money for our students?
I would definitely. You can never start too early. And a lot of times if you go right to that school's website, a lot of times they have information about scholarships right there on the website.
And one last question, confusion. Athletic scholarships versus academic scholarships. How do we know what our child is best suited for?
It depends on, again, their academic ability or their athletic ability. If they're being recruited by that institution to play a sport at that institution, you might want to talk to them about the availability of athletic scholarships. Not all institutions have them. If your student is a stellar student in terms of their academics, then certainly talk to that school about their academic scholarship programs and what you need to do, or if you need to do anything special in order to be considered for that money.
And sometimes the students don't fall in any of those categories, but we do have scholarships that are catered to students that typically just meet a certain criteria because they're in a certain program.
And so, there is money for everybody, right?
There's money for everybody. You just have to look for it.
And sometimes the search seems sort of frustrating, but you have to make the search.
Right, and you have to make yourself open to all the types of resources that are available.
Definitely.
So that's scholarships, grants, campus work, and student loans.
Exactly.
Have to take advantage of every type of opportunity that's available.
Thank you very much for talking with us. I feel much better now.
Excellent, thank you.
Good day.
Meet the Candy Lady, Jackie Chesser, owner of Goody Gourmet's popcorn and chocolates.
I thought that I wanted to make wedding cakes, and so I ran out of flowers one day, realized I had chocolate, so I stuck the chocolate on the cake. Everybody at this event ranted and raved about the chocolate.
So she exited corporate America and started her own business, and like corporate America, she did her homework and researched the candy business.
What motivated you to make candy as opposed to another kind of product?
Besides the fact that I really love to cook, and I don't care what it is, I found that it was the easiest venture to start. And the research that I did, it would have taken me a number of years to just be able to open the door to anything. So we just started small. What we do here is dipping. We don't actually make chocolates per se. We make a lot of the recipes from scratch, and then we just use different products, different chocolate products to dip them in. So we do hand-dipped chocolates.
And how did you decide which chocolate, which shape, which flavor? How do you come up with all that?
Well, we kind of did a survey prior to opening to decide what people wanted. And we just took maybe the top 12 things, and that's what we make.
What is your specialty?
Popcorn. We started off with the confections, but that wasn't it. We still do well with the confections, but the biggest thing is the popcorn because everybody loves popcorn.
And what about the popcorn they're loving so much?
I think the fact that we offer the different flavors is what's quite exciting because, for example, nobody's ever heard of like lemonade popcorn or jalapeno or bacon. So when the customers come in, they have the option to try any of the flavors they want. It took me about 3 years to actually do the planning for the business. I played around with different recipes to make sure that I perfected them, to make sure that the consistency would be there. And then once I decided to open, of course, everybody is always giving me something new to try. Well, you can't open without popcorn. So that took another maybe year and a half to research and perfect just to get the consistency there. So after we did that, we found that there was no place in the city offering the different flavors of popcorn. So we ended up connecting with a couple of flavor specialists, and we got together and really added some of the flavors to the cheese popcorn that we were doing, and we were quite surprised at the results. So.
What's been the reaction from the neighboring businesses and from the community on your venture?
They have been quite excited as well as supportive because there's nothing like this in the area.
Chester's popcorn has been compared to the Chicago style of popcorn, which can now be bought here, alleviating the long drive.
What do you want customers, when they taste your product, what do you want them to think of?
I want them to think of something from down home. I want them to know that we really, really care about what we're doing. There's a lot of pride that goes into every batch of popcorn and every batch of chocolate that we make. So far we have gotten the very results that we want from the products as well as from the customers.
So at any time during the day, stop by Goody Gourmet and visit the Candy Lady.
This is African American History Month. And while we here at Milwaukee Public Television celebrate and acknowledge Black history throughout the year, there are some special programs this month that we'd like to bring to your attention.
The upcoming clips are from programs airing within the next week. You can find a list of the specials on the Black Nouveau webpage at the MPTV website.
William Still and the story of the Underground Railroad. The man who recorded the secret history of America's great slave exodus, risking his own freedom to tell the stories of those who had the courage to run.
The critics call it superb, remarkable, a stunning accomplishment.
Just sit on the front of a bus. People could try to burn you to death.
Powerful, inspiring, about as essential as you gets.
We'll take kidding, we'll take beating. We're willing to accept death.
Winner of 3 Primetime Emmys, Freedom Riders.
Your parents tell you, don't start something that you can't finish. Finish it.
On American Experience.
The black man wasn't equal to the white man in the 60s.
We didn't know if we were going to make it back across that bridge. I think that was the scariest moment of our life.
We're in this thing for the long struggle, and you know, if it takes filling up the jails, we're going to fill up the jails, but we're not going to stop until this issue is resolved.
For more than 40 years, Harry Kemp documented Milwaukee's African American community. View his legacy and share the memories of the man behind the camera in a Black Nouveau special presentation. Harry Kemp, the Photography Man.
According to the Centers for Disease Control, African Americans account for 44% of new HIV cases in the United States. 70% of those are black men, and the largest group in that number are black men who have sex with men. We're joined by two people on the front lines against the fight against AIDS. Ronnie Grace, CTR leader for Diverse and Resilient, Inc., and Jose Salazar, HIV department manager for the 16th Street Health Clinic. Gentlemen, welcome to Black Nouveau.
Thank you.
Ronnie, what's driving up the infection rate for young black males?
There's several things that's driving up the infection rate. A lot of misinformation, the fact that oppression, depression, lack of resources, racism, all those things contribute to the rise of the HIV infection rates.
What role does having sex with other males play in that rise?
Well, it's not just males. Females,
Gotcha.
Contract the virus as well. But as far as male-to-male transmission that you're talking about, it's has to do a great deal with people being responsible, getting the information that they need to take care of themselves and to try to bring down those risks.
Now, Jose, how do we get the message across for people to be safe? In essence, how do we get this education aspect out there?
Okay, we have many programs, and there are many other organizations in the city and the state working together to bring this message of prevention to the communities. And there are many ways, and we have been trying to be very creative. We create events, special events for special populations to bring the message of prevention to them, and that's one of the most successful ways, combining social events and the educational piece.
Now, both of you are on the front lines of this. When you encounter people out there as you're doing your work, do you find that they're not very much educated on concerning the issues as it relates to HIV? Ronnie?
Well, as far as, there's lots of information out there. You see for years there's been information out about HIV and how to get it and how not to get it, condom use and the importance of using condoms. And so when it comes to that, for the most part, there are resources. And so there are agencies that people can go to, like our agency, Diverse and Resilient, of course, Jose's agency as well. And there are several other agencies in the city that people can contact.
Is part of the problem, Jose, that HIV is not as deadly as it once was?
I think sometimes it is the case, because people think, and especially younger people who didn't live in those times in the 80s when we saw people dying in 3-6 months after they were diagnosed, and they think that it's something that they can live with. And youth always think that we have the world in our hands and we can do whatever we want and nothing is going to affect us. And if we get it, we can deal with it, because now there are all these treatments and all. But that can be one of the reasons that younger people especially, are thinking that, yes, I can live with this. I have seen people living for 30 years already with the infection, and they are okay.
Right. In many respects, it's not as scary to a lot of people as it was, say, back in the late 80s, early 90s.
Now, Ronnie, how much is a problem of the stigma of being gay or homosexual an issue in this, especially when you're dealing with African Americans?
It's huge. Stigmas in our community is huge. And because of the stigma, it keeps people from actually going many times to get and seek the resources and the services that they need to take care of themselves.
How do we get rid of that stigma, though, Ronnie?
Education, education, education. With his agency as well as mine, we have several programs that we provide for the community, and we try to be out there. We try to roll out programs into the community and be in the community so that people will see, that people are visible.
Now, Jose, what are the major problems and concerns you see with the clients you encounter?
Well, and going back to the question before, and it has to be in some way with this question, a lot of people don't look for information because they are afraid they're going to be point at us, or they don't go to the clinics to get tested, or agencies who are specifically funded to do testing because they think those places are for gay people, or those places are for people who are already living with HIV, or if I go and ask for a test, people are going to think that I'm doing things that I'm not doing, and acceptance has a lot to do with it.
Very briefly though.
Yes.
Are the same stereotypes prevalent in the Latino community, similar to the African American community?
Yes, we have a lot of similar problems with stigma and.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, if people want more information, how can they go about getting it? Ronnie?
Well, there's our agency, diverseandresilient.org, and we're here locally. We're area code 414-390-0444, and so you can call us. You can call Jose's agency. There are several other agencies that are in the community. There's the AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin. There's the UMOS, and there's also Milwaukee Health Services, Keenan Health Center. So there are several agencies that people can contact if they need.
Gotcha. Gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And that wraps up this edition of Black Nouveau.
Don't forget to check out the Black Nouveau webpage at the MPTV website. Good night.
Good night, and thanks for watching.